Well, those of you who don't remember who former Governor Jim Gilmore is, he was one of the 17 people that Trump beat for the GOP nomination for the presidency. And basically, after this particular segment, I'm kind of glad that Trump beat this guy. Mr. Gilmore has now joined a long list of butt kissers to Donald Trump in the name of party unity. That's Ben Carson, Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, etc. And listening to this guy speak is kind of an embarrassment. I mean, Trump basically opened up this line of questioning when he went on stage about 5 days ago and said he regrets saying some of the things that he said and causing people pain by his comments. Now, the easiest thing in the world for these surrogates to do would be to just say, well, I'm not Donald Trump, but if I were Donald Trump, I would, and then just start rattling off, the people that they might apologize to. And maybe you only want to apologize about one or two things at a time. You could go with, the Khan family, or you could try to mend a few bridges with the Hispanic community, or with the Muslim community, or with the physically challenged community, etc., stuff like that. But these surrogates, or people that are speaking in behalf of Trump, which is a surrogate, they just can't do it. Republicans as a whole, for the most part, other than, I guess, Paul Ryan has stepped in there and said that the guy was straight out wrong on several things, and I think maybe Mitch McConnell kind of gave a lukewarm disapproval of some of the things that Trump said. But for the most part, the majority of these Republicans that are supporting Trump, they can't admit that Trump has made any mistakes, or even make one mention of anyone that he should apologize to. So anyway, I'm going to play this segment so that you can see what I'm talking about.
Candidate Jim Gilmore. And Governor Gilmore, I'm going to start with you. You were not in that soliloquy. He didn't go after you, so you got lucky during the primaries that he didn't include you in his list of horribles. But if you were advising the Trump campaign now, where would you advise him to start if he wanted to get specific about these apologies? I'm going to go right to birtherism, which is not only the first time that Donald Trump sort of made a national splash in a political sense, but probably the thing that hurts him most, among a lot of things, with African Americans. Do you think that he should apologize for demanding to see Barack Obama's birth certificate?
Well, Joy, I think the main thing for him to do is begin to change the dialogue of the campaign. I'm not a political advisor. I was a candidate myself. I wanted to be the nominee. But you've given a long litany here of things that Donald Trump has said, and that has been promoted, and I think the Clinton campaign will continue to promote that kind of thing. What Donald Trump needs to do is to reassure the American people that he's a reasonable man, that he doesn't intend to hurt people, and to start the campaign over again, and not allow diversion away from Hillary Clinton.
But you've been in politics a long time, sir. As a former governor,
long time.
And you know that one of the strategies, the apology, can be a strategic thing, right? But when you issue a blanket and broad apology, it invites a very obvious and logical question. Well, what are you sorry for? We just played that litany because he invited it by saying that he regrets. Don't you think that he should be specific? And there's some that maybe would help him. The Khan family, for instance, going after that Gold Star family, maybe naming them John McCain, who was a war hero in Vietnam whose heroism was questioned. Heidi Cruz, his former rival, he probably liked Ted Cruz's support, but he basically called out his wife's looks. Shouldn't he apologize specifically to some of those people?
Well, you've given a long list. If he did all that, they wouldn't talk about anything else. And what we really need to do is to really be talking about Hillary Clinton, his opponent.
But that's
This
not
is a
the
woman.
point, though. The point is that he invited the apology. That's not about Hillary. That's about Donald Trump. He said things that were wrong. Don't you think he has now invited the logical question, well, what are you sorry for, and shouldn't he answer that?
I think what he has done is Joy, is he has said that he has misspoke, or not misspoken, he has said things that he shouldn't have said so far in the campaign. And it's allowed the campaign to be diverted away from the real issue here. And the real issue is the the disqualification of Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States.
That actually isn't the real issue in this segment. We're talking about Donald Trump, so I want to stick with on topic. Let's go to Hunter Walker. Hunter, you've been covering politics, including the Trump campaign. Do you think it was a strategic mistake for Donald Trump to get up and give a blanket apology that just invites that litany that I just played and that I've begun to read?
Well, I think I would have to agree a bit with Governor Gilmore. If he really got into the specifics here, it would be a very negative conversation, and I don't know when it would end. As you've pointed out, there's a really long list there. And, Pew just came out with some really great numbers. We're looking at two candidates with very, very high unfavorables. At this moment, Donald Trump, his just happened to be higher. But really, both candidates have 50% of America that will not vote for them and about 50% that might. So he needs to reach that ceiling of people who might consider him. And I think that happens with a positive conversation, not necessarily rehashing his old mistakes.
Yeah, and
Bingo.
That tends to be sort of the narrative that you hear, but they're both equally unpopular. The data actually shows that is actually not true. They are not on the one hand and on the other hand. Hillary Clinton's convention actually improved her numbers significantly. So is that still the narrative, that it's really just about Hillary Clinton?
I think, I really respect Hunter a lot, but I do think that a lot of us are kind of spouting that line because we need this to be a race, and I really don't think that their negatives are the same. I don't think she has 50% of the people who will not support her. In some polls, she's got more than 50% support. So, yes, there are questions that have been raised about her, and yes, some of them are absolutely fair. But the real issue here is Donald Trump's suitability to be president. And this, I think, I never disagree with you, but I think even calling it an apology gives him too much credit. It's a blanket statement of regret. An apology actually says, I'm sorry to you, Joy, because I said something that was wrong and that hurt you. Donald Trump has definitely grievously offended me personally, going back to birtherism. Is he talking to me? I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, and I wonder about the strategy of it, because my friend Fernando Mondi did make this point the other night, and I hadn't heard anybody else make it, that saying I have regrets was actually kind of a mistake, because it has now triggered everyone who's been paying attention to Donald Trump to now go through and recall all of the things he said, and he really can't escape them, can he?
Well, no, I don't know if it's about escaping them. I think it's about enabling his surrogates to go on TV and say, hey, well, he made an apology about everything, and he doesn't necessarily, if he got specific, then you have to go to certain things, each thing, what have you. But by issuing what is called a blanket apology, quote unquote, I think what he's trying to do is make sure he wipes the slate clean. And so he gets past that conversation. And so you've already seen it. Surrogates have come on the air and said, hey, he apologized for everything. Why can't we move past it?
Let's try to move past it. And it's a strategy. Listen, they have to do what they have to do, right? They're trying to run out, we think, is an election. All right, well, the New York Times, meanwhile, is reporting this morning, it's breaking news this morning, that companies owned by Donald Trump owe at least $650 million in debt, twice as much as declared on various public filings accompanying Trump's presidential run. For example, according to the Times, one office building that Trump partially owns here in New York has a nearly billion-dollar loan with lenders including Goldman Sachs and the Bank of China. Governor Gilmore, I want to go to you on this, and I don't know if you had a chance to see this story, but Donald Trump sort of vilifies China as sort of one of the villains that he would take on as president of the United States. Do you think it's problematic for him to be in significant debt to the Bank of China?
I don't think that a business person is ever going to have a really nice and tidy situation behind him. I certainly don't think he needs to be in debt to anybody, but the real news this morning, Joy, and I'm sorry to have to tell you this, the real news this morning is that the Clintons said that they're not going to accept overseas contributions anymore to the Clinton Foundation, which she did, was doing while she was Secretary of State. That's the real news this morning.
There's nothing illegal about a charitable foundation accepting international contributions. The Clinton Foundation is not her campaign.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
There's nothing illegal about that.
This is not a campaign matter. This is official.
You're trying to conflate the Clinton Foundation, which is a charitable organization, with what we're actually talking about, which is somebody who wants to be president of the United States and is personally in his business dealings in debt to China, trying to make those the same as a good, smart sort of political tactic on television, but it isn't the same thing.
I insist, Joy, that when you're an official, the Secretary of State of the United States, and you're running a charitable foundation that's accepting overseas interests,
but she was not running. She was not running the Clinton Foundation. I think we need to make that clear because we want to be accurate. Joan, you had
it was her husband's foundation.
She was not running.
It is absolutely, Governor, with all due respect, it is absolutely accurate. It was her husband's foundation. She had a deal with the Obama administration.
All right, see, now he just lost his cool, and he's on the wrong end of a losing argument.
No,
the legality is fine. This is Joan. Sorry,
the legalities don't matter.
No,
what does
the
matter
legalities
is
don't matter. No, really not.
Legalities don't matter? Okay.
Sir, the legalities do matter. We've actually taken the segment off track, which I think was a good strategy on the part of your part, Governor Gilmore. I know that's what the surrogate's job is, to try to take the conversation toward Hillary Clinton.
Wait a minute, I get to have my own judgment here.
No, but but your judgment and the facts are two different things. You cannot say that the illegalities don't matter, but you've essentially tried to accuse the Secretary of State of doing something illegal. I don't think that that's fair. So I think that we just want to make sure we're accurate. I want to go to Hunter on this because this is something maybe you'll be covering as a journalist. Do you think that it is an area with probative value to look at Donald Trump's debts as a business person? Not that he can't be in business, but that if he becomes president and he has this significant debt to a foreign country, to the Bank of China, do you think that that has probative value?
Well, Donald Trump's foreign business ties are something we don't know a lot about, partially because he hasn't released his tax returns. And I think it's a very, very interesting area of inquiry, particularly as we see Paul Manafort leaving his campaign amid clouds over his ties to Russia. And actually, I'm aware of one business deal involving the Drake Hotel where Paul Manafort was working with this guy, Brad Zaxxon, who was tied to Fred Trump, and they said Donald Trump might come in on the deal. So, I think there's a lot of questions about what governments Donald Trump might owe money to, what governments he might have been paid by, and we just don't know without the returns.
And Jamil, this is an area that Donald Trump has tried to sort of keep away from, right? He talks about his business success, but if he's running as somebody who is a successful business person, then I would think that this would be a logical area of inquiry.
I think groups where he's very unpopular, I think especially young people, really smell the BS when it comes to Trump's business dealings and also his personal comments. And what I think this story is where I think the story could be damaging for him is, frankly, it just underscores the notion you cannot trust this guy with the economy. And the economy is, the foremost concern for a lot of voters. And I think, frankly, you have to pay attention to this stuff because it tells you how this guy runs a business. It tells you how he could possibly run our economy. And I think it's really problematic.
And Governor Gilmore, I'm sure had you
about the economy.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think that Donald Trump should clear up some of this? I know had you stayed in the presidential campaign, you would have released your tax returns and had no problem doing that. Going back to Richard Nixon, candidates have released them. The Clintons have released 30 years of them. Do you think that Donald Trump should release his tax returns and clear up these questions?
I have always been an advocate for transparency in government, and I'm not here just as a surrogate. I'm my own man as a former presidential candidate, but I want to answer what was just said.
Sure.
When you look at the two economic...
Okay, notice he didn't answer the question of whether Trump should release his tax returns.
Economic programs that have been issued here, Hillary Clinton just doubles down on the failed economic policies of the last 8 years. The country is not growing, wages are flat, people aren't getting opportunities, and she's going to double down and do the same thing. At least with Donald Trump, the businessman, you've got a guy that's put an economic program out that offers some opportunity for people in the African American community and the working community all across the country. So,
all right, and the longer he talks, the more he catches himself.
this is the choices that I think are before the American people.
Well, I think, to that point, sir, I think it's important to point out that we've had 77 consecutive months of job growth. I believe that's the famous bikini chart that shows the economy under President Bush and the months of job growth under President Obama. I believe the unemployment rate is now under 5%. I think the Dow is at over 17,000. It actually, the economy is doing quite well. We can grab it.
That is not true. That is not true,
Let's get the unemployment rate.
Now he really lost his cool, and now he's going to dispute the fact that the economy is doing okay. Nobody's saying it's doing great, and nobody's saying that obviously that we can't do better. But he's going to try to sit up there and say and throw stones by saying it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Well, it damn sure is a hell of a lot better than it was during the Bush era. But obviously they want to throw stones. So here he goes throwing them.
Get the
That
unemployment
is
rate
not
going
true.
up.
It is actually
You think
not
the
true. The
unemployment rate
economy is not doing
the
well.
economy,
And the American people
let's
know
put
it.
the chart back up again. That is 77 months straight of job growth.
Yeah, but it's not enough. An emergence from a recession usually shows an
That's
economy
the
growing at over
longest
3.
extended economic growth that we've had. There it is. That's the unemployment rate, sir. That's 4.9%. The last month's job growth was 255,000
But it's
jobs.
not enough.
The GDP
It's
growth
not
is
enough to
well, it's
offer
never
real
enough. Certainly,
opportunities to people.
it's never enough, sir. Of course, we'd all like to have the economy be even better. But if you say the economy is in terrible condition, I'm just showing you the data that shows what the economic conditions actually are. That's just the math. It's not my opinion.
May I just
Please
say, Trump is going back to the Bush strategy of massive tax cuts for the rich, which did nothing, which cost us jobs in the first decade of this century. So
Yeah,
there's
that's
nothing
cool.
new. It's absolutely
cool.
true.
Should we put it back up again? Are you saying the economy was better under George W. Bush?
No, what I'm saying is that we have to have an actual plan for growth in this country. The
Tax
failing
cuts
of the
for the very
Obama
rich is
administration
Donald
and Clinton
Trump's plan.
administration, the failing that they've had is they haven't
That's
put
the
a
economy.
plan in place that will actually grow the economy.
The economy is growing, so
hope
the economy
that we
is-
Republicans will be able to do.
Well, if I may, Governor, if I can ask you, what specific plans does Donald Trump have for the African American community? All I've seen him do are say, well, what do you have to lose by voting for Donald Trump? I want to know what I have to gain as an African American voter by voting for Donald Trump. So can you tell me exactly what plans he has specific to the African American community that you're touting right now?
And that's the number one question that is asked anytime you ask about a Donald Trump policy. What are the specific plans? And that's the number one question that none of the surrogates can answer, including Mr. Jim Gilmore.
Here's what. The answer is that if you grow the economy at where you should be at almost 4%, there will be jobs for everyone.
He asked, what specific plans do you have for the African American community? He didn't say for the overall country. He said specifically targeted for the African American community. The answer is ding, 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 ding. None.
Opportunities for everyone. Right now, if you
That
have a
doesn't answer my
slow-growth
question,
economy-
Governor. I'm asking specifically about African American. I'm asking specifically about the African American community, which you brought up, sir.
And I'm answering it. If you have a growing, burgeoning, a dynamic economy, there will be more opportunities for everyone, and especially people in the African American
Well, you can say
That is absolutely not true. Jesus. And this guy was losing his cool as well. Just because the overall economy is does well, and even when the majority within the economy does well, that does not necessarily translate to the African community doing well. I mean, if you look at the unemployment rate there, which is 4.9%, the African American unemployment rate is double that. And when the overall rate was 9%, approaching 10%, it was like the world was going to end, and the majority was screaming blue murder. Well, hell, we should be screaming blue murder because our rate right now is 9+%. So Mr. Gilmore's, let's call it a hypothesis that when the rest of the country is doing well, then African Americans will do well too. That is not necessarily the case. Possibility, I will grant you, but more times than not the case.
Slow growth economy, the
black
first
poverty is not
people
the same
who
as
lose
white
their
poverty,
jobs
sir.
are African Americans.
Okay, well, we're
And
out of
that's what
time.
has to be done.
We're out of time. That is the data on the economy. People can look at those numbers and they can decide whether the economy is growing or shrinking. I think the numbers say it's growing, but we appreciate everyone being here. Joan, Jamil, and Hunter will be back. Governor Gilmore, thank you very much. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, he lost his cool, but always at the end, being the true politician that he is, has a smile on